Hello, everybody, and welcome. You're listening to From Good Dentist to Great Practice. And this is a podcast where we take an honest look at the realities of building a truly great dental practice. I'm your host, Dr. Frank Clayton, and I'm a dentist and a former practice owner who now advises other dentists on building stronger, more sustainable practices. Today, we're going to talk about how a hygiene department can not only protect your private practice, but make it profitable as well. You know, everyone talks about the corporate takeover of dentistry, but the truth is, your best defense against the corporate dental changes is in a bigger marketing budget. It's the person sitting 18 inches away from your patient in the hygiene chair. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest who does sit right next to people for 50 minutes a day, knows more about them than I do. And that's why she's here to tell us some stuff. This is someone who was in the trenches with me for over 10 years in my private practice. She isn't just a world-class hygienist. She's a business-minded strategist who understands that every single hygiene appointment is an opportunity for education, retention, and growth. And that's very important to think. So tonight we're breaking it down and we're going to how to transform your hygiene department from a cleaning mill into a corporate dentistry disruptor. We're going to talk systems, the psychology of the handoff, and how to build the kind of team loyalty that lasts a decade. So let's dive into it. Lindsay Murphy is a full-time, hi, Lindsay. She's a full-time hygienist here in Atlanta, Georgia. She's a mom of three, a wife of one, and has done it all in the office. And easy to say, one of the best employees I've ever had the privilege of working with, from the front desk admin to assisting and now hygiene. Welcome to our show, Lindsay.
Thanks for having me.
Isn't this exciting to do? You can tell people, yes, you know, you're in this all day long, and sometimes it can get monotonous. And now you can share with people the good, the bad, and people need to know both. You know, so it's tonight we're going to talk about both, so they can learn from it, because you can learn from your mistakes just as much as we have from our successes. And you could probably read my mind on the stuff that I'm going to ask and go over. But are you ready to get this rolling?
Yeah, let's go. I'm excited and bring a lot of background, a lot of experience. So
great. So the intro is right. Wife to one, mother of three. Is that still the same situation?
That is still correct.
And you're not pregnant?
No, we are done.
Do you want to tell people what the look on my face when?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It's everybody knows what I'm talking about. When Lindsay would come to the door, anyone, and it would pause and you would have that look. And what would you say?
Do you have a second that we can
That's either I'm about to leave the
yes,
go ahead.
It would be at the most opportune moment too. Like it's stewing in your mind all day, but you want to catch the doctor before they leave or before they go to lunch. Usually before they leave, so that then you had at least another 12 hours before you had to discuss it again.
Yes.
So, but yes, I came in and I said, do you have a second? I need to talk. And your look was, are you quitting? I said, no, I'm not quitting. But after 10 years, we're having another baby.
and so it's usually one of the two. The doctor knows, you know, it's one of the two. And you sit there and you try to prepare yourself for it, but it's almost like if you tell your spouse or you tell someone we're having a baby or I'm leaving the marriage, whatever, it's the bomb drop. Yes. And then it takes a little while to get over it, but we got over it.
Yes.
I mean, when I interviewed you, you were pregnant. I knew it. This is with child number 2.
Yes. When actually, you didn't technically know it right away because I shadowed with you.
Yeah.
Applied, and then timing wasn't right. So a couple months went by and you said, I'm going to keep in touch with me. And then you did. You came when you had the opportunity, you had the position open, you came back. And then that's when I was like, I would love the position, but I'm 6 months pregnant. I need a temp for 3 or 4 months if you don't.
Yeah. And it threw a little wrench in things, but you know, the people listening, that's short term. And if you communicate with your staff of what their family goals are, you work that into the business. So when Lindsay said, you know, I'm having this, but I plan on coming back to work, I plan on doing this. That's the way we planned our schedule. We planned, you know, people went to bat for you. And then when other people were out, we're going to talk about that, how you filled into the front desk. That's what made things work. It was the bottom line of this was communication, and it was trust within each of us in that office. Don't you think?
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
you have to really work the ins and outs as if you're that family, and you cover for each other and you make do, and it really does become a family pretty quickly in the right office.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But the family you like, not like my aunt.
Yes. Not
That not that aunt, but the other aunt that I don't talk to, but not like that.
yes.
So, I'm thinking back to this as I was looking over this and we were talking. What's the one thing that you remember most about how we handled because we made our office different. Tell
Mhm.
people how we handled the patient experience different.
Yeah. That was one thing I always got feedback on after as new patient appointments were kind of coming to an end, and you weren't yet in the room for an exam, and so many patients would say, this was the best experience. You guys are so thorough. It's just so easy to be here. I've been so nervous coming into this appointment, and you've made it so nice. I can't wait to come back in 6 months, or I can't wait to tell my neighbor. Um, but they have to look at you not just as providers, but also to have that relational aspect. Even though you're not friends on the outside, they think you are their best friend, and they can't wait to come back and see you, and they can't wait to for Dr. Clayton to come in and do his exam just to ask about your kids or tell them about their daughter that's graduating nursing school. You really have to make them value that time with you in the
Yeah.
chair. Yes.
When I first started practicing and you were like, well, maybe hot towels will do it. Maybe a bottled water. Anybody can do that. But what
Yeah.
we did to make it different took a unique set of personality traits from each of us, and we all had different ones. Where just like you said, we knew more than just the teeth. We knew outside of the operatory, we gained trust, and it wasn't a fake trust.
Mhm.
Um, it's very boring just to drill clean teeth all day long. So what we did is we made it about that patient. And when
Yes.
they were in your chair for those 50 minutes, it was about that patient. I didn't peek my head in. Nobody talked to you. You focused on the patient. Don't you think that was a big part of it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we all have those patients that we see coming in on the schedule, and we're like, "Oh no, not so and so," or "Oh gosh, they're so hard to clean," or "They're so hard to get numb," or they always have a pessimistic attitude. But after you get them in there for about 15, 20 minutes, you realize, like, they're people. And you get down to the bottom of it, and you remember things about their family or about their vacation that they were telling you about 2 weeks ago when they came in for hygiene. And you know you become friends, and you have that relation, even with the people
Yes. Yeah, yeah, I know what
you
you're gonna
don't look
say.
forward to seeing. But at the same time, you still, when you spend that 10 15 minutes with them, you get down on their level, and the appointment becomes much easier. And then when
Yes.
they leave and they check out, like, how your coworker was like, "How was that?" And you're like, "Yeah, it was good. It was good." So you kind of just roll with it. But the relational aspect is the biggest thing that I always valued in our office.
Yeah.
They looked at it different. Just like you said, we didn't have the hot towels or the massage chairs or the TVs with the headphones or the paraffin wax dips. We had relationships with those
Yes.
people, and they really truly, I think, valued it. And so many people are apprehensive when they come into the dentist. And so many people we touched, and we made it easy for them to make that next appointment, and
Yes.
easy for them to come back. Um, and to us, it became second nature. It wasn't hard. It wasn't hard to do once you learn how to do it.
Right.
Or
It
you
it's a
find a great team that is going to do it. Because not every employee can get down on those levels. You've got to find the right group, usually women, that but within that office that can make it work.
Yes. Lindsay's talking about opportunity realignments, which is
Yeah.
my catchphrase for "you're fired." But honestly, she knew and she saw we didn't go through a lot of people, but the people that were there, I would rely on Lindsay and the rest of the team to really ferret out, is that the right person? Because they're the person that's going to be working with them the most. And they knew it and they could tell. And your intuition, I would rely on that heavily if they would fit into the group, because the group was working as a system. Which this goes back when we talk about marketing, and you talk about what's a differentiator between, that office and this office. I'm just going to say corporate, just to generalize. Not all corporates like it, but it's hard in a corporate office to give that personal touch. Either you're working so much to make production, or you really don't care because you have nothing vested in it. But you took a different approach, and that's why you didn't have an opportunity realignment. And that's why I could tell when I met you, and the people listening know your gut in the first minute or two when you meet someone, whether it's a potential candidate or someone, say it's at a dental meeting, they may come knocking on the door 6 months from now, a year from now, and if that person is going to be the right fit. You will make changes in your practice for that person, which we did. We accommodated as much as we could for everyone, and everybody knew that, just like we do for patients.
Mhm.
And it's exhausting, isn't it?
It is. It
It's
is. It
that's
is.
some people hear, oh God, I want to do a fee for service office and this, and I've been talking about it's an emotional drain. At
Mhm.
the end of the day, it's physical, yes, all what we do, but it's an emotional sponge that we are, especially if you have this type of practice. It's so rewarding, yet so draining. You're ready to go on Thursday and
Yeah.
just, and detox from it all.
Yeah.
Uh,
And even with the where you're saying a fee for service is so draining, but little by little, as you go through it and you make those changes and you get through those hurdles of dropping that insurance, and both on the admin side and the clinical side, as you go and you get through it, it does become easier. It doesn't take the emotional toll off of dealing with the patients every day, but the flow of things as you become that fee for service office, you learn how to handle things, and um
don't you think it's a leap where some docs will do some things in their office and systems, or just the way to, and they're afraid that that patient might leave for X?
Mhm. Yeah,
We took the leap, and some patients did leave,
yeah,
because we would quote the whole fee, and I would even go over in case insurance didn't cover it, or we would say, no, we're not the right office for you. And
mhm,
people would say, well, what do you mean? You have to have the courage to believe in your staff and what you do. Then something happens to patients where it's almost like a take it or leave it, and it's not nonchalant, but it's like, we built this for you. If you fit here as a patient, come play with us. We'll take care of you, and we did.
yeah.
Um, but some docs have a hard time, like, making the leap. What would you tell them? Like, have you worked in offices where it is that leap? And if they would just trust either people in the office or systems, I always go back to that. If they would just trust that, you could see the doors open for the
Yeah.
office. Have you
Well,
seen that?
I have, in prior offices before I worked with you for so long, and just different offices, I've seen it work. I've seen it work, and I've seen it. It's not always flawless, but it's pretty close to it once you get it going. And you got to just put those fears behind you. Um, you have to, like we just said, you've got to have a team that you're trusting, as a doctor, to handle this stuff. But when you know it in the back of your head that this is the right foundation, and you have the right just schedule, even if the schedule has room for improvement or room for growth, but you have the right team to facilitate that, just take that leap,
Hey,
because it can be worth it. It's scary,
speaking
even
of,
dropped Delta
exactly.
for the last time. I mean, we didn't know, we had this X amount of patients, and a lot of them were Delta. Those last, a lot of those patients. And what happened, we kind of gave them that ultimatum in the sense of, well, this is where we are as a practice. This is our choice, that we have to make, because even looking at Delta's fees and their reimbursement, that hasn't changed in 15 years. And unfortunately, from a business side, we have to make this decision. We don't want to lose you, but we understand. And what would happen? 70% of them would go across the street or they would go down the road somewhere closer to home or somewhere to work. And
Yep.
what would happen? One family member would go somewhere, usually the wife, sometimes the
Yes.
husband, because she would send the husband
Yes.
first.
He's the guinea
And
pig.
then the wife would call back and say, I changed my mind. We want our appointments back. And that happened to us so many times. And from that point on, they were willing, they saw our value. They saw the relationship aspect. They saw um, what we, even from the hygiene side, that they're not just a number. They're not coming in for 30, 45-minute hygiene appointments. They get that hour, maybe an hour and a half if we think they need that. Um, and they did. They valued us as providers.
There's enough people out there to do it. And you
Yeah,
talked about the schedule. So you always saw the schedule differently than most hygienists that I've worked with. So how did you balance the providing the great clinical care with the reality that
yeah,
you're responsible for, you're there for 50 minutes. So we're co-diagnosing um, their restorative needs, and you understand the economics of the practice
yeah.
where how did you tie it all together? I mean, did you keep one eye on your numbers and the office's numbers and the patient's needs? Like, that's a lot for a hygienist to put together to even care about the business's need. A lot just maybe want their paycheck and they go. We weren't about that. You were very different on that. How'd you approach it?
And even just to put this out there, we weren't an office that was bonus model driven. We didn't have our own hygiene bonus system. I wasn't, I was very numbers oriented. I've always been. I like to see growth. Me and one of our hygienists, Ashley, worked together for such a long time, but we challenged each other to, let's say in 2022, we hit X numbers. Well, we were coming into the end of that year and we were going to hit another, our goal was even to set low, not low, but another 50,000 for the next year, right? That would put hygiene above 100,000 total. But we worked off of each other. And it wasn't to earn an extra $100 on my paycheck. It was really to see that growth. And that challenge was it's always been a challenge for me. So
And
you have to.
the
Yeah,
money follows, doesn't, I mean, I
absolutely. I mean,
would,
you work for the right, yes, you work for the right boss, and he treats you in ways that when you least expect it. You know, we had a great month, even if the most of the team didn't know the monthly numbers. We were coming into February 1st, and here he comes into huddle with a Walmart grocery bag, and you knew what was in that bag. You knew it was a bunch of hundreds, maybe a 20, but really, like, everybody was going to get 100.
right.
But it was
Uh,
things like that, or at end of the
I
year.
always I always
Time.
agreed with rewarding you all, not just because, and Howard Ferran said this the first time, not just because, the earth revolves around the sun on the 365th day, you earned a salary.
Yeah,
You earned a bonus on your salary. I always saw it as you had a great month, or you had a aha moment with a patient, or somebody who hasn't scheduled in 8 years for something, and suddenly they did. It's those kind of things. Don't you agree that those kind of rewards, they're much more fulfilling than that trip around the sun raise, $1.50 raise? Don't you
I was just
think?
gonna say, it keeps you motivated. It keeps you feeling appreciated, valued, as an employee. We keep talking about value because it works so much on the patient side, but actually on the employee side as well. You have to feel valued. Even a little birthday card on your birthday, something like that, just to make you feel special. But when you see little things throughout the year, uh, even I think we got roses sometime on Mother's Day, things like that you did, or Valentine's Day, little things in the operatory for all of us, just to say, you know what, I appreciate you. Happy Valentine's Day from your work boss. Um, but it's little things like that leaves you where you don't feel like you're chasing
Right.
that dollar raise. It's the value. It's not always about the dollar. It's the value. And it doesn't have to be much. It doesn't have to be thousands at Christmas time. It's little things.
You,
Lunches.
we're gonna do an entire webinar on this, and it is. I always say, you're working 99% of offices, you're working with women. There is a different mode of leadership and understanding for women than there is for men.
It's a different
A-
love language,
yes. And you have
when it comes down to an employee standpoint, it's a different
it
language.
really does. And
Yeah.
I tried, and my wife would tell me, you've got to approach, and I would read, we're going to talk about this in a webinar, but it's the approach and the way that females think different than males.
Mhm.
And it may go for a female boss as well. It's still a high pressure situation where we're all working under, and God, it's very stressful. People outside of dentistry don't understand that. So you have to do all the things you've talked about, have to be with a smile,
Yeah.
and patience.
Or a
You walk
listening
in.
ear. I mean, a
Yes.
listening ear to where,
Yes.
I mean, I think each one of us, there was 6 main ones there for so long that so many times we came just with a tear on our face in your office just because something was happening in our personal lives or something that we just need to get off of our chest, and you just would listen, but you would mentor as well. But it kept it, so again, back to the relational aspect of where it wasn't just strictly boss employee, you
Right.
became, it just was a different level.
It
So
it it
it's
it it's a
important.
fine line to become part of your life and part of your life at
Yeah.
work as a boss. And Lindsay, I appreciate that, but there was this one time, and I'll go ahead and say it,
uh,
Lindsay, where I had had enough, and I called a meeting, which usually doesn't happen. They're usually planned. You
yes.
wanna take it from there, Lindsay? You know what I'm
Not
talking
really.
about, right? Okay.
We've had it
S
twice. We had
we
it
had it
twice. I
twice
was in
where
one.
say it
Yes.
again?
We had it twice. I was involved in one, um, and it became productive.
Yeah, I'm as a boss, and I reached my limit. I was tired of dealing with bickering and this and that. So I took them upstairs and I said, okay, we're about to have a meeting. And then I basically lit the fuse and walked away and let them slug it out. And I don't know, how did that end up, Lindsay? Because I went downstairs and I think I took a nap. I had
Yeah,
had enough. I reached my point and I knew to just walk away.
you know, as much as you're proud of that moment, that was a rite of passage. And in the moment, it was tough. There was a lot of tears, I think, for a lot of people around that table, but we each were able to get off of our chest exactly what needed to be said. Things that we may not have just hashed out during huddle or different things like that. Because the truth is, like you said, it's mainly an office full of women for most of us in these dental practices. And like you said, we have different ways of relating to one another, different things in personal lives or whatever, but things come up. And sometimes you frankly just get on each other's nerves and things need to come out in the open. Um, One thing I noticed though, it doesn't always happen immediately where you get that let's be friends or let's shake hands and call it quit, agree to disagree. Sometimes it can take months or even years to really kind of see each other for who you are. But little moments like that, little hash out moments, big hash
Yes.
out moments, it only makes you stronger in the end with the right people. It has to be the right people
Right.
to admit maybe fault in a situation or to see somebody else's point of view, even when you don't agree. Sometimes it takes the right people, and
Yep.
it made us stronger. It made us stronger in the end.
Almost like a sibling
Yeah.
fight.
Yes.
I don't have siblings, so that's why I walked away and let you guys hash it out, and you guys
Yeah.
eh
I think you went and took a nap. I
yeah,
think you
yeah,
shut your door
I
and took
avoided
a
it.
nap. Yeah.
So we talk about the people aspect, which is huge, which we're trying to differentiate from a corporate practice. We also had as many systems as I could fit in without overwhelming.
Hmm.
And you knew this, and Amplify really helped us with this because I did some, and before they came along, and they joined the practice probably about Lindsay's fourth year. Then I brought Amplify in to help streamline some systems as I got busier. One of them was a doctor handoff, or we didn't like for patients just to check in. They always had somebody that was responsible for them, or it was front desk when they came in. Then
Yeah.
Lindsay would come get them. They were never left alone. And then when I came in, Lindsay, tell them what we did. So I would come in for my 2 minutes, your 58 minutes, my 2 minutes, sometimes four if I talk too much.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
what would you do on the handoff when you took them up front or when I left the room? What would you say?
Real quick, even prior to your office, I went to a CE course. It was up in Virginia with a prior office of mine, and one thing I gained from that was that it's always about the handoff. And once I told you this too later on, once I met you, you were like, "That's it," and I'm sure you've heard it, but it always takes three. Um, Whenever treatment's needed, whenever anything's needed, the patient's already heard it from me. Okay, just whether, and we'll get into that, but and then they're hearing it as you come in and we're chatting. You're like, "How did things look?" I'm like, "Things look good overall. We talked about this and we talked about that, but I did want you to take a look at this because we talked about some concerns." And then you would agree. And then it would take one more handoff, though. That is one of the most important aspects is when I'm taking them up front or an assistant is taking them up front after restorative, they're going to hear that one more time. And that's to the front desk. Now, our front desk already knows exactly what we're talking about, but they're still
Tell them
standing there.
how they knew that, and
Yes.
tell them when before I walked in the room, what was our method of communication? Because it act
Uh,
like we were clairvoyant.
yeah, messaging on the computer worked for us, almost like old school AIM, AOL instant messaging. That was it. We didn't have the fancy headsets because honestly, that would drive me crazy. So it works for some offices, but for us, it would not have worked. But it was always messaging. And I knew if you weren't in a restorative room, I knew where to find you. For the most part, and so our messaging always worked. I'm taking x-rays, even if you haven't gotten, usually you would kind of view them as you have time and you're in your office. Right after you hear that beeping kind of finish, you would start that viewing. But as I'm going through them, I'm like, "Hey, 12 DO looks a little sus," like, or vice versa for you. You're like, 12 is going to be a full crown. Um, but as we're doing that, just little things. You don't want to go overboard with it with the patient, because the patient, I've had some people be like looking over their head and be like, "Who? What are you doing back there? Oh, it must be bad," or because or they think I'm distracted and I'm just over there chatting away to somebody.
Yes.
Um, but you have to start the conversation between clinical and the doctor. You have to start it early so that when you then come in, it's not a full blown shock to you. You've
Yep.
already gained the information. I've already told you, "Hey, Susie's going through a lot. She's stressed. They've got a divorce going on. Definitely, heavy bruxing." So that type of thing, when you see DO fractured on number 12, you already have things that then you can lead into, right? That we're going to be talking about a night guard and we're going to be talking about this. But possible reasons for why this fractured already. Uh, and so when you come in the room and you ask me, even though you already have 100% knowledge of what I'm about to say to you,
Yep.
we say it again. "Hey, we've talked about this, and if you could take a look at number 12, her and I were talking about this fracture that she's got going on with some stress." And you act like it's completely new knowledge, but it's not. You already
That
know it's already in the treatment plan because we've confirmed it with each other. You and I have.
Yes, and I'll see it
Right.
pop up on treatment. That is, I call that planned spontaneity, and
Yeah.
it's where I already know the answer. Lindsay tees it up. The doc comes in, and so going back to your conversation today, this is where I want people and listeners to understand what Lindsay's talking about. So she's sitting there talking to the patient, and they're telling her about a divorce. She's
Mhm.
hearing things that, one, well, if she's seeing broken restorations, she's putting it all together.
Yeah.
Stress, death of a mother. So not only are you getting to know the patient, um, you can also understand the dental and the health needs. She may be seeing something different color with the gums and may recommend, a blood test. There are all kinds of things that you can get from conversations of patients, not just point to the tooth where it hurts.
Yeah.
There are other things that'll lead you there. And Lindsay was very good at that. The better hygienists do understand that. You make it personal, but you also are getting tidbits of, yeah, this affects systemic and oral health
Yeah.
and
Airway issues,
airway.
snoring. I'm
Exactly.
always asking, even when I think they might I know they might, which then I know they Brux and all this stuff. I'm like, "Hey, do you happen to wear a night guard at night or maybe a CPAP?" And they're like, "Oh, my doctor recommended a CPAP, but I can't wear that. I can't wear that." Okay, then we've got to be talking about some other stuff because then when they fracture these restorations, they're going to start to look at you as the dentist being like, why are your restorations breaking? But
Right.
we can stop that and we can halt that concern or doubtfulness by leading into these other conversations, which as any good hygienist, you should be able to really do. Um, but it takes some to kind of master it. And it also makes them value the work that you're about to diagnose. They're going to see the need for it.
Right.
Um,
How long did it take you in your career to feel comfortable that you've seen it, for the 10th time so you can recommend it? You've gone to a CE that's, it's certified. You're like, "Yep, that I'm seeing this." So when in your career did you start tying that all together and go, "Now I feel pretty confident whatever comes along, I can tackle it." There's always a one-off,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I would say even from hygiene, I was very comfortable even prior to hygiene in the dental setting. I worked up front doing patient coordination. I did dental assisting, like chairside trained for before hygiene school, that kind of stuff. So I was comfortable there. But when it really becomes that one-on-one experience that you have, and everybody's going to be different, but I would still say that 5-year mark probably was my, okay, I got this. But at the same time, it helped then when I found an office like yours and listening to even the way you converse with the patient or explain treatment or anything like that. You build off of each other. You learn from one another with conversations or ways to say things. You kind of just morph off of each other. You
yes.
gotta find the right, but yeah, it takes several years. You can't any office can't hire a brand new hygienist and expect her to, yeah, she'll do perio or she'll clean teeth and she'll do this stuff, but it takes a seasoned employee um, that's been around for a little while and has even seen different offices and different staff or different providers and listened to how they handle things really. You
Yeah.
learn. You learn from each other. You had me read books on I read a book on airway occlusion, and really that's where I gained my most knowledge is those small palates, and you start to think about airway and just different things like that, but you use it. You use it
Yeah.
each day and you kind of just build off of things that you learn. It's important to keep up with CEs and yeah, just
That's
training.
I would say, as a young hygienist, yeah, learn technique and learn the basics of that. But then when you start branching out and you start learning like airway or
Yeah.
psychology of things, or, there's all kinds of little tangents that you take. You can, and it doesn't even have to be dental related. You bring the
Mhm.
value back not only to yourself, but to your practice that you're in. And if you leave that practice, you take it with you.
Yeah.
It never hurts to put more books on your personal shelf to better yourself. I told Lindsay and I told every employee, if you ever left, I want you to leave a better person. If you
Yeah.
keep investing in your employees, it's almost like it comes back to you. They will seek that, and then your business grows around that. And as Lindsay said, you kind of feel like family on that. Um, but it's not fast, is it? It's
No.
not it doesn't happen overnight, like you
It doesn't
said.
happen overnight, and it doesn't even you don't even realize when it happens, until it's happening, and it's been happening. You're like, "Wow, like, this is working, and we've figured this out. We've mastered this." And then your
Always
doctor goes and retires, and you're like, "What the heck?"
uh,
No,
it's
no, it's, it happens, before your eyes. You
yeah,
don't even realize, how good it is in that moment, because it's working well, things are streamlined. Do you still have those hiccups every day? Yeah. Do you still have those little tiffs between employees? Yes, but it can really become a good thing if you learn how to master it. Um,
yes, and
mhm,
it's not easy.
no.
It's difficult. I tell people everything in life is difficult. Dentistry is very difficult.
Yes.
Doing dentistry well is even more difficult, and running the practice is even more difficult. because it
Mhm.
adds layers. It's not just like what Lindsay learned in hygiene school and what I learned in dental school. What would you say, Lindsay? That's probably 10%,
Oh,
15% of what we do.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
the
yeah,
didn't you think in hygiene school, God, I've got to learn to probe this, but this has to be exact. I mean,
ankle. Yeah,
and yes, you're so focused on clinical stuff. The reality is clinical makes up about 10, 15%. The
yeah.
rest is life
You
and
become your best provider self when you really figure out, like you said, the psychology of it, dealing with the patients. Yeah, when you figure out all the other little stuff on how to handle that hour appointment, and
yes,
how to maximize it. So
that is it's almost like the gates open and you have that aha moment and you actually like going to work.
you like it. You do.
Yes, yes.
Yes. I mean,
It
there's
can happen.
there
A
is.
lot of
Yeah.
people say that can't happen. It
No,
can
it
happen.
can. And you do.
Yeah,
I mean, do you wish it was still Sunday? Yeah. When Monday rolls around, absolutely.
exactly.
But you get through it. You're like, that was a good day. Like I said, those tough patients, you begin to love. You enjoy seeing them sometimes, for the most part, but it doesn't ruin your day having that one pain in the butt patient on your schedule. You
Yes.
really do start to enjoy it in your work environment.
Yep.
So,
So
one
many
thing I was
things.
gonna talk about too, because you we led onto it, and then we went back to the relational value part of it. But one that was maximizing. You asked a question about kind of with numbers and looking at the schedule, and then we,
Yes.
I think, went into taking care of our employees and stuff.
Yep.
But one thing it's so important from a hygiene standpoint, and again, some offices it works really well to have a production based system for their hygienists, and some don't feel the need for it because their hygienists are already self motivated or just as a whole. But one thing you need to be doing is looking ahead. I mean, utilizing that 4346 gingivitis code. But you also need to have a different fee along that, right? It's not going to be the same as an 1110 pro fee. You need to have an increased fee on that. And so as you're looking for this, a lot of insurances more and more are starting to cover that code as frequent as they are covering those 1110 pro fees. And so if you get that person that you've been doing those bloody pro fees on for every 6 months, and they come in and they're just walls of tartar everywhere, and you're pushing your time to that 50, 55 minutes before you're even sitting the patient back up, you need to be getting paid for what you're putting into it.
Oh, for
um,
sure. And the
and then-
practice, and those are the kind of things Lindsay's bringing up a good point. We're not talking about selling fluoride.
oh yeah,
Patients might need fluoride.
we're
We're not talking
overselling
about
Perio.
pushing.
It's not always
Exactly.
that. We were
It,
so productive. Look
it's
for, oh, go ahead.
No, you saw it and you said you
Yeah,
worked up front. So you were aware of different coding more
yeah.
than the average hygienist. So that allowed you to boost your production in ways that, a hygienist that may not be, know what's going on with the codes or just accepts what front desk tells them.
Mm-mm.
That's a
Yeah,
value add to the dentist in the practice right there without pressuring people. It's you're educating the dentist because some of the dentists they go, I didn't even know
yeah.
that code existed.
And that's one even great thing about fee for service is as you're taking, even if there's not 100% insurance coverage, being fee for service, these patients are already used to things not being 100% covered like they would in network. And so you're able to gain these more productive appointments, just by looking at these codes, by looking at SDF coverage. More and more insurances are covering, what is it, 1354, that code for SDF or
Yep.
Curdon. Some people are using that same code for that. But taking advantage of those moments or those opportunities in the operatory, looking for FMXs and panos. You know how many offices where FMXs, they come in, maybe they do one at a new patient appointment, but sometimes patients are bringing their own x-rays over and they just accept that at the new practice. And then what happens? 8 years, 9 years, 10 years goes on before we've got any type of other full series because
Exactly.
we're in this regular flow of 6 month recalls, every other appointment doing bite wings, you know?
There's
You
there's there there's so much of this. Would you come back for another episode
Yeah,
to talk about that? Because we can go in detail where a doctor's production could rise just for uncovering what Lindsay's talking about. And the front desk may not see it. Your partner hygienist may not see it.
mhm,
Lindsay would hold little sessions when we would have lunch and talk about this.
yeah,
This is what I saw when how about this? Front desk will say, yeah. Sooner than you knew it, Lindsay's production was boosted without pushing anything. I
mhm,
want to talk about this more. We're up against a little time here, but I want to bring you back to talk about that because that's huge value. That's production that a doc can get without stepping on a rheostat any more than they need to.
yeah. It's
Would you?
easy. It's
Yeah.
easy. Yeah,
Would you be willing to come back to do that?
absolutely,
Good,
absolutely.
good.
Yeah, because 'cause I've got a lot of things there we can chat
I
about.
know it. I
Yeah,
know it. I mean, talking of you reminds me why I'm so passionate about what we did, and this is the same thing that Amplify does. They hone the systems in, but their marketing is based on what we did on our practice. They
yeah,
helped me, tie it in together, but it wasn't, you've got to push the probe a little harder and now it becomes scaling or replaning. It's
mhm,
about this. It's about the relationships. And so what I'm trying to do is to give the doctors the tools to create the same kind of synergy that you and I had,
yeah,
so they can focus on the dentistry while the business systems run in the back like clockwork. It takes a while to get them there, but you were such a big part of that, and I wanted to say not only thanks for the podcast, but thanks being part of my
yeah,
life for 10 years. And
absolutely.
and I definitely want to have you on, and I appreciate the time because I know you're working and you've got the kids, but you've got a lot to offer. You know what you need to do? You need to go out and tell offices how to do this stuff.
Yeah, that's my
One day,
long-term
huh?
goal, and one
One
day.
day.
As you're closing up, one thing I would say though, for the doctors that may be listening, if you even have just a little inclination that you have a staff member that's eager, or that wants to make better for the practice. Don't always blow them off, trust them little by little. Give them a small task. Just say, hey, why don't we look more into this? And that'll be more for our later conversation, but trust your employees. When you have the right ones, don't automatically just say, nope, I make all the decisions and all that, which I do respect, but have trust in those right ones because they are there and they're out there and they are willing to make, the office to grow because it's exciting to be a part of that.
Yes.
So that's what I would say is just trust when you may have that person that can come up with some good ideas.
That is
Yeah,
so true.
it
And
is.
you were one of them.
Thank
You were
you.
one.
Thank you so
But
much. So
thanks for coming on and thanks
yeah,
for your time. Again, this is the From Good Dentist to Great Practice podcast. I'm Frank Clayton. That's Lindsay Murphy. And we'll be back with her on another episode and we'll dive even deeper. And if you've got any questions, you can email Amplify. I've got some information where we will take questions for future podcast and webinars. And we'd love to address your questions on that. But again, thanks for your time on this, Lindsay. And we'll
yes,
see you
thank you so
later.
much. Thanks for having me. Good night.
You bet.